Hey everybody, I'm going to keep this as brief as possible. First, I want to say that I'm from Iowa City and I'm an outsider to Minnesota, an outsider to Minneapolis, but I just made my third trip up there in the last 6 weeks to volunteer at a mutual aid point and to deliver aid donated by the fine citizens here in Iowa City. I'm also a documentary filmmaker, and I wanted to hear more about what's going on from locals while I was up there. So every time I'm around people, I'm just like, hey, can I ask you questions? And I specifically wanted to ask questions that were different than just, have you seen ice? Have you interacted? Have you been in any kind of intense situation? I mean, those were the first questions I asked. But on this last third visit, and it was just this last weekend, I was talking to someone and they said, you should talk to a school teacher. And honestly, I was confused and I was like, why talk to a school teacher? How are they involved in any of this? And if you're a school teacher listening and you live in Minneapolis, you just rolled your eyes because you're like, dude, you don't even understand. So here's what happened. On Sunday, my last day there, I was at a coffee shop and I started a conversation with someone sitting next to me. And they asked me what I was doing in town. They asked me what I did for work, and I mentioned what I did. And then they were just like, oh, and you're looking for a school teacher to talk to? And I was like, yeah, haven't found one yet. And they were like, I work in the school system. And I'm not going to answer your questions on the record. But I said, well, can you just give me some things in general, just so I can learn from what's happening here? And so here's what they told me. So again, this is firsthand with some obfuscation to cover up this person's identity because I take that kind of stuff seriously. But this is what I learned about what's going on up there. The first thing to know is that ICE has been active on school properties in Minneapolis. In plain view of students, they have tear gassed people and thrown people to the ground on school property. This has happened at a high school and at an elementary school. At least those are the two incidents that I heard about specifically. And I personally spoke with someone on one of my trips. I spoke with someone who had their 5-year-old child fully witnessing ICE on campus throwing people to the ground right in front of their child. So as a result of ICE's activity on school grounds, there are now many students who are not attending in-person classes due to safety concerns. As you can imagine if you sent your 5-year-old to school and then you get a call from school that says, oh, ICE was on campus. They tear gassed people. They threw adults to the ground. Your child was shocked and terrified and they won't get on the school bus. You have to come pick them up. Would you send your kid back to school the next day, the next week, 2 weeks? Maybe not. So schools offered, in response to this concern for safety, they offered online classes for those who don't feel safe enough to come to campus. And I want to stress that people that don't feel safe coming back to campus, if there's any people who still fervently support Trump, you're like, oh, it's just the undocumented folks that are afraid to send their kids. No. People of all backgrounds, all legal statuses, are afraid to go back to campus. I'm not saying all kids are afraid to go, but I'm saying the people that are staying at home it's all sorts of people from all walks of life. However, so the school system is offering online classes as well to help with this situation. However, many students and their families do not feel safe even to attend the online classes. The risk is that online classes allow others to see into their homes, overhear voices nearby, and to identify who might be on screen behind someone. Also, many students staying home might not have the right gear to attend virtually. They might not have reliable internet at their home, etc. So here's where it gets even trickier. And I actually only learned this today from someone else interacting with me on Facebook who is a teacher within the school district. They told me if a child does not attend classes for 15 consecutive days, they are then removed from the student rolls. And this is a state law, it's compulsory attendance law. And that means that the district or school then loses the state money for that child. Okay? So losing funding for missing students means that all children within the school system are impacted. Services that need that money aren't going to be getting that same amount of money now. They're going to become less funded. Sorry, that sounded really unsophisticated how I said that. Um, Another facet to this, though, is that when a child is unable to attend school for those 15 consecutive days, there's a further step that happens. It can then lead to fines for the parents. It can lead to involvement with being investigated by the whole truancy system. And the parents are going to have to possibly explain why they're not making their child attend school. So it means that families who are invested in protecting their children could then end up being punished by the truancy system. So it is just a huge mess. Another facet here, economically speaking, is when a child stays home to stay safe, okay, when a parent makes that decision, a parent usually also must stay home with that child when they're under a certain age, right? And that means that the parent can no longer work outside of the home to make money. So there's a huge financial consideration that happens there. I also learned that some teachers have tried to encourage students trapped at home to keep learning by delivering materials to them at home, right? So like school administrators and teachers like, how can we help this kid keep up with classes? But in many cases, I learned that this is unsuccessful because the family does not want anyone coming to their home and exposing their location. Also, they don't know that they can 100% trust a person coming to their house. And if you're wondering why, it has been documented that ICE is impersonating people helping people in the community. So like they will go to a place that's delivering mutual aid. They'll pretend to be a super helpful person delivering aid to someone trapped in their home, and then that allows them to target that person. So people have good reasons for not wanting, unfortunately, some types of help coming to their house. The last thing I'll say is that I was also told that there were cases of school teachers and administrators trying to help children come back to school in person by arranging rides to the school grounds via parents who are willing to drive their child. And these parents would be folks who would be less likely to be questioned about their immigration status. In these examples they gave, I was told that it had not been successful. Anyway, I'm trying to keep this short, so I'm going to shut up now. If there's any educators within Minneapolis who watch this, and you're willing to sort of share some of your observations, you can direct message me, or you can comment below. And if you're outside of the area and you're watching this and you're like, okay, this sounds fictional, all I can tell you is that it does feel fictional. Even when you're there in Minneapolis, it feels like it can't be happening, but it is happening.